Maybe you remember this from the news a few years back. Apparently, a few Christmases ago, as you drove north along the New Jersey Turnpike, just before you hit the Lincoln Tunnel, there was a large billboard at the side of the road. Actually, there are many billboards along the New Jersey Turnpike, but this one was just before the tunnel. On the billboard were all the traditional images of the Christmas story: the manger, the baby, Mary and Joseph, the animals, the wise men, the shepherds, the star, everything. Beside it all, though, were these words: you know that it's a myth. The sign was put up by the Society of American Atheists. The thing is, as soon as you passed the sign, you went directly into the Lincoln Tunnel. I'm sure there's a metaphor there, since those of you who have ever driven through that tunnel know what a purgatory it is. Just getting into the tunnel is a horror. It's a vicious bottleneck with 6 lanes of cars all trying to squeeze down to just 2. Added to this is the fact that New Jersey and New York drivers are not exactly known for their politeness, which means that in addition to hundreds of cars all pushing to get in front of each other, you have the blasts of horns and windows rolled down for shouted obscenities. And those are the good days. On the bad days, it's a complete standstill. Eventually, though, you enter the tunnel where the chaos continues, so you find yourself traveling through a nightmare of darkness, noise, blaring horns, and stop-and-go traffic. It seems to go on forever. But finally, you reach the other side. You break into the light, and there waiting for you, you find a second billboard. At first, you think it's just a repeat of the first. Much of it is identical. Here again are all the images of Christmas: the same manger, the same wise men, the same shepherds, the same star. But then you notice the words. Where the first sign said, you know that it's a myth, the words on this sign are, you know that it's the truth. You know that it's the truth. This second sign was put up by the Roman Catholic Diocese of New York in direct response to that first billboard. As I say, there's a metaphor in all this. I think it's no coincidence that the first sign leads to a long, troubled passage, a dark tunnel of chaos and struggle and conflict. Then comes the second time, and with it, the brilliance of the sunlight once more. There's a great truth here, because Christmas involves far more than just a beautiful story. It also expresses a profound hope, both for each one of us individually and for humanity as a whole. A promise of joy, love, transformation that is lost if all that it promises is rejected as untrue. And yet, as that first sign makes clear, there are some people who do reject this hope, tragic as that is. It's very sad, but it does happen. It happens because some people simply find it too hard to believe that something so beautiful, so wonderful, could really have taken place. It's not that many reject the idea that Jesus actually lived, or even that he was so poor that he might have been born in a stable surrounded by animals. No, what they reject is that he was God come among us as a tiny babe, a human being just like us, so that his coming would change for all time what it even means to be human. That's because with his coming, he showed that each of us, too, has a spark of the divine within us, a bit of God that can help us to become far, far more than even we thought possible. They don't believe this. But let me tell you, I believe it's true. In fact, I know it's true. I know it because I've seen it. I've seen that transformation. I've experienced it myself, and I've witnessed it in others. More and more as I've grown older, I've found that I am able to be a better person than I know I really am. Not because I somehow make myself better, but because I have help from a power greater than myself. And not only that, again and again and again, I've seen the same thing happen to others too. Let me give you an example with a lovely story I heard a while ago from a member of this very congregation, Lauren Cantrell. I hesitated at first to tell his story, worrying that it would embarrass him, so I checked it with him. I never tell another story without checking with the person anyway. Lauren was embarrassed, but he did agree that I could tell it. What happened was this. Lauren was cleaning outside the church one day when he noticed two women at the church's fig tree. I didn't even know the church had a fig tree until Lauren told me. We do, by the way. It is right at the edge of the property, and it produces a lot of figs. That's what the two women were after. They were picking figs. Now, most people's reaction would be, they're picking our figs. That's a natural response, to be indignant, to be both protective of the church and resentful that these women were taking what wasn't theirs. That wasn't Lauren's thought, however. The first thing, the thing is, just as he noticed that both women, just then he noticed that both women were wearing hijabs, the headscarves that marked them as Muslims. And at once, something that he himself had been saying for years came back to him. It was this. When Jesus said, love your neighbor, he did not add, except for. With that, Lauren put down his tools and went over to the women. They turned to eye him suspiciously. Each held a basket half full of figs. I see you're picking the figs, Lauren said. At first, they didn't respond, but clutched their baskets more tightly. At last, one nodded slowly. Yes, we are, she said cautiously. Well, Lauren said briskly, you're going to have trouble reaching the figs higher up. Let me get you something. He returned with a ladder and set it up. With his help, the women soon filled not only the two baskets they had, but two more. As the women left, he thanked them. They thanked Lauren profusely. You're very kind, one of them said warmly. Very generous. Lauren just smiled. That's what my religion taught me, he said. It told me to love my neighbor as myself. And that's what I try to do. I try to love everyone. You see, that's just one example. It's a particularly lovely example, but it is one among billions, billions, and billions of such examples. And together they prove that the Christmas story is true. Jesus' coming changed things forever. Sure, people can still be cruel and prejudiced and nasty and hostile, but I'm convinced that for every one of those sort of people, there are 100 others who are more generous, more giving, more loving, more open-hearted than even they think they can be. Such people very seldom make the news, but they are everywhere. I know this because I know Lauren, and Lauren is one of those people, and so am I, and so are all of you. Together, we prove it. It's true. Something very, very special happened that night 2,000 years ago in a rundown stable in a dusty little town in Palestine. What happened there changed the world. It became an infinitely better place than it ever had been before. I know it's true because we're part of that change. The world has changed forever. And as a result, so did we. It's true. Merry Christmas.